Man, this ain't how I saw today going. 1 minute, I'm tearing through that street takeover, neon lights blazing, crowd hyped, cameraman rides shotgun. Next thing,
doctors and lawyers.
their Hellcats roll up. Draco's spitting fire. Tires gone, sparks flying, Trackhawk's done. We commandeered that beast, thought we'd outrun them, but nah, they weren't playing. Swerved us into a ditch, had to bail. Now we're out here, sprinting through this damn countryside. Grass up to my knees, heart pounding like an 808. Cameraman's whispering to stay low. This Hellcat's still prowling. I spot a trail leading to the woods up ahead, maybe 100 yards. That's our shot. Hide, catch our breath, figure out what's next. Crickets chirping, engines fading, we might just make it.
Dude, I think I saw at least one with a 5.56 AK. It probably doesn't even work, dude.
This one does.
AMG, Bentley truck, trapping out the ghost. 7-figure payment, time is money, gotta go. Addicted to the game, game for the dope. Met her at the party, she was playing with her nose. Big dog, I could get the highs and the lows. 5-star sweet, she ain't never going home. New Kelly Birkin, red bottoms on, so Maybach, heard you only 150 sold. Front split, ice on my chain. All the more got a plain Jane. The money drive a nigga insane. I made my first meal before the fame. Candy paint dripping, got me moving like a pimp. Cashed out straight, got it from the dealership. BOA, TV, candy, Chevy, or the chase. Trap nigga, at the shoe box before the bank. Diamonds in my chain, go blind when they blink. Diamonds in my chain, go blind when they blink. Diamonds in my chain, go blind when they blink. Diamonds in my chain, diamonds in my chain. AMG, Bentley truck, trapping out the ghost. 7-figure payment, time is money, gotta go. Addicted to the game, came for the show. Met her at the party, she was playing with her nose.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. On today's episode of Watching Me Have a Good Time, we are talking about 5.56 AKs, but in particular, this one that I have for you today. Boys, you see this sick new production, high quality Type 56 chest rig? You should go to phantomin.com and pick one up. If you enjoy our tomfoolery, you should go support Phantom Industries. So first, we kind of need to start off with somewhat of a caveat in relation to the AK world and 5.56 patterned AKs. Things in the AK world are not really good. A lot of countries that made really good quality AKs are under sanction and they're no longer able to import them, or we are no longer able to import them into the country. On top of that, ammo is becoming more expensive and more difficult to get for the traditional com block chambered calibers, 7.62 by 39 and 5.45 by 39. Back in the day, things were great. It was all plentiful. It was dirt cheap and you could find it anywhere. Unfortunately, now that we can't import ammunition from Russia, you see the prices starting to climb on ammunition. As a result of that, you see a revival of 5.56 chambered AKs, right? Because people still want to shoot their AKs. Hey, I want to shoot an AK. So 5.56 being the most economical, affordable way to do so. The problem with that is, for whatever reason, the American companies, they seem to have a hard time with the smaller calibers. For the most part, 7.62 by 39 has been figured out by companies like PSA. It seems like the 5.56 guns aren't quite as reliable. Unfortunately, that leads to things like broken firing pins, improper geometry around bolts and trunnions, poor material choices, things like that. And I know what you're thinking. I know that your Uncle Bubba, his Pioneer has 1,000 rounds on it and it's fine, or their PSA or whatever. But the reality is I have personally seen plenty of PSA 102s, break firing pins. I've even seen trigger spring issues. I've seen all of these companies have issues with their 5.56 AKs, and that just seems to be kind of par for the course, including WBP. Can't say with 100% certainty, but from what I hear that there are some AK builders who are now refusing WBP parts for guns they're putting together for clients. Me, being an AK guy, shooting some AK matches here and there, so that only leaves me with a handful of options. Arsenals cost way too much money. Those do not come into the country regularly anymore, and they cost so much money. So what I did is I went and found a Romanian SAR 3. That is well, not the answer, it is a answer to a 5.56 AK rifle. These come with their own quirks and things that also make them unattractive, and likely back in the 2000s when these were being imported, I don't think they were very popular. So today we are talking about my SAR 3. This particular one was imported in the year 2000, so this is somewhat an old rifle, and I took a gamble on it buying it used, but that's kind of the name of the game here when it comes to something like this. I wanted a com block built 5.56 AK. So this has many similar features to a 74. It is not literally based off of 74, but it's like 74-ish. And so there are many things about it that I appreciate, because I do like the modern 100 series AKs and the 74s. The few quality of life features that they bring into the platform. So, but some main caveats with something like this is the bolt has been shortened in the factory. So replacement bolts really aren't a thing. So that also applies to the firing pin. The firing pin has also been shortened as a result of that. There's a little luck involved in relation to what condition or shape you could find one of these in. You could probably find one new, but at the price point that you could get one of these new, I don't know how much sense it makes. So in addition to the shortened bolt and firing pin, consequently you have kind of an odd shaped hammer for the trigger, right? So when these came in, the factory triggers have been known to chew up the back of the bolt stem. And the workaround to that is there was an old company that made a perfectly machined hammer to hit the rear of the tail of that carrier of that bolt. And I wound up actually reshaping the hammer profile on the factory one so it hits nice and evenly and it wears evenly on the rear of that bolt. Something else, another large caveat, and I think another reason why people didn't really gravitate towards these back in the day. Well, one, people were like, why do you want a 5.56 AK? We have ARs and things like that. They wanted 7.62x39 guns and 5.45s. The magazine choice, they decided, the Romanians, when they were engineering these, they decided to use a German Uyghur, I think that's how it's pronounced, Uyghur, based around a German 5.56 magazine, a Rock and Lock magazine. At the time, it wasn't like today where you have a standardized 5.56 AK magazine. Back then it was a Wild West where these manufacturers would basically come up with their own idea, and they seemed to think that was the best option for them because it was already a produced reliable magazine. As a result of that, however, you have a very picky gun. Standard 5.56 AK magazines, not all of them are going to fit, and some of them do require a little effort to bring it there. So notably, when I was researching this before I got into one of these, I knew that Bulgarian Circle 10 magazines, if you worked on them a little bit, those would fit and feed reliably, and that has been my experience so far. The Unity ones have fit with little to no issue, just working in and out of it a little bit, and they seem to be fine. It came with an old Tapco magazine that also seems to be working. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of Tapco products, so I probably won't use it a lot, but it's nice to have one of those. And then also it appears the modern production Bulgarian magazines that you see, so the non-Circle 10 magazines from Bulgaria, those seem to fit too, which is great. So that's kind of a non-issue at this point with these, but back in the day, you had to use a pretty specific magazine. I imagine that turned a lot of people off of these. One of the reasons why I really like these, we have the 90-degree gas block, the 74 style gas block. And overall, there are many things about it that are kind of they scratched the need for me of a 74, well, shooting 5.56, and I really just like the idea of having AK manufactured in a former Soviet bloc country. That's just what I prefer, especially with all the issues that I've seen with the domestically created 5.56 AKs. Another strange thing, the barrels were machined or turned down oddly, so the actual thickness for mounting the front sight is not it's not a Bulgarian spec in terms of dimensions. I think a Ames 74, you can put those on here, I believe. But as a result of that, it's not like a true like 74 gun or a true military gun. To me, that doesn't matter a lot. I'm really just looking for something I can beat up and I know it's going to function reliably. This being made in the year 2000, it was imported to the United States during the Clinton assault weapons ban. So as a result of that, from what I understand, there was a thread pattern on the muzzle that the ATF actually said was okay, but I believe Century Arms decided to go ahead and machine them off anyway. So leaving very little to work with on the muzzle to thread. So this one I have threaded myself. When I got a hold of it, it was smooth, just because obviously I want to suppress it. So let's talk about how the gun shoots. So the gun, I will say, is reminiscent of the 74s I've spent time with, that in the sense that they all are just flat. I mean, absolute laser beams. They shoot so flat and they're all incredibly gassed well. I was a little concerned due to a lot of comm block guns, especially older ones. They're usually gassed up pretty harshly, but that's, you know, where you get the AK reliability and things like that. But I was pleasantly surprised to find that this was gassed just like most 74s I've shot. So it is an absolute laser and a joy to shoot as a result of it. So it's fun to shoot. Can't really talk about the accuracy. I haven't shot this. I haven't tried to print groups with this thing, so I'm not entirely sure how accurate it is. Probably not very, you know, it's probably a 3 MOA gun, something like that, 4 maybe. I have no idea. Let's talk about what we have on the gun. We have a CAT WB 718 on one of their mounts that I have ghetto rigged to a shoulder to achieve proper bore alignment. And then moving back from there, we have a Steiner D-ball, Surefire, kind of generic setup of mine, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. The Ghetto Hollow Sun on a, you know, a lower 1/3 mount. We have the Sure Shot chassis, looking good, or it was looking good. That was painted in a made up pretend camo pattern. And then we have a Midwest Industries Foldy Boy, because that is one of the things that if you're going to have a AK or something that contains the spring, the recoil system inside of the receiver, you might as well as have a folding stock, you know, in my opinion. And then we have the Tango Down Big Boy, the big chunky boy grip. So to kind of further continue the discussion in relation to the state of AKs, and even with this right here, the problem with something like this is not a genuine answer to the shooting community, right? This is a single thing. There's probably not that many of them around. They were only produced for and brought in for a handful of years before they came in as Wassers and there were changes made and things like that. The reality is, I don't know how long the AK thing is going to survive, because there's so much human involvement when these are manufactured, so much labor, human labor. They're probably only going to go up in price. Whereas you see the ARs are getting dirt cheap, absolutely dirt cheap. And a lot of that has to do with production volume and then also, you know, automation. So that, and also the political side of it, where you can't really hardly bring anything into the country anymore. Or like Serbia, for example, they just said they're halting exports to the United States for some other stuff. But things are not looking great for the AK world, which sucks. But that's the reality of it, right? And, you know, Norinco made something similar to this. I have no idea what those are like. They're probably good. I like Norinco. Old Norinco stuff is awesome. So it's probably okay. But how many of those are out there? And what price are people going to want for those? The Bulgarian, the Arsenals are very expensive, and they barely come in anymore, if at all. I guess what I'm saying is you better hope these American companies get it together in relation to the design or whatever choices are being made to cut corners or save money. They need to stop if they want these to survive. I mean, most of these large companies probably don't care, and like, I get it, but it just sucks, man. It's a tough pill to swallow. That something like this, which is a Romanian, it's really not anything too crazy. Something like this probably will become collectible eventually as a result of how the current trajectory of how things are going in relation to the AKs in this country, which is ridiculous. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a good gun. These are good guns, but it shouldn't be like a collectible. You know, like, it shouldn't be something that fancy. We should have access to well-built 5.56 Kalashnikovs and AKs in general. Like, it sucks. And I think part of the issue in relation to the platform obviously was not designed around 5.56. 7.62 by 39 and 5.45 are tapered cartridges. 5.56 has a slight taper to it. It's different though. You're trying to adopt a platform to a cartridge that they were never really meant to go together. Do they work? Yeah, some of them. But it's not ideal. It's not the same thing. And I think that's part of the problem that we see with these companies when they scale down to the lower cartridges, is either higher pressures, or the geometry is different, or they've just had so long to figure out the 7.62 by 39 guns that they just haven't caught up with the 5.56 guns. I'm not entirely sure. Well, I appreciate you guys watching. Please subscribe. You know, thank you for coming to my slop talk.
And like.
Like and subscribe.